The year 1977 saw rock music completely fracture. On one side of the Atlantic, punk was busy terrorizing London. On the other side, arena rock had swollen into a billion-dollar behemoth basking in the California sun. The airwaves were a chaotic battleground of shifting cultural tides. But beneath the pristine vinyl of the year's biggest hits lay staggering amounts of betrayal, censorship, and psychological warfare. We consume these tracks today as harmless nostalgia. We are entirely unaware that some were penned as weapons of revenge. Others accidentally mirrored real-world serial killers. And one of the most upbeat anthems of the decade was composed during a desperate battle against addiction in a divided Berlin. Here's what most people don't realize. The songs you've tapped your steering wheel to for 40 years are hiding dark, untold secrets, right in plain sight. These are 10 classic rock records that defined 1977 and the true stories they kept buried. Number 10, Solsbury Hill by Peter Gabriel. There is a distinct sound to a man running for his life. In 1975, Peter Gabriel was the magnetic frontman for Genesis, one of the biggest progressive rock bands on the planet. They were packing theaters and selling records by the truckload. Then, Gabriel just walked away. He left the fame and the money because his newborn daughter was severely ill and he needed to be a father. His bandmates and management offered little in the way of support. In their eyes, his sudden departure was a profound betrayal of the group. So, Gabriel wrote a resignation letter. He set it to an uplifting, acoustic melody that masked a deep well of bitterness. The imagery in the verses mentions an eagle flying in the night. That wasn't just a poetic flourish about nature. It was his harsh realization that the corporate music machine was actively devouring his soul. He had to get out before there was nothing left. To capture that exact feeling of escape, the track was built on a highly unusual 7/4 time signature. That odd meter gives the rhythm a persistent, unsettled, forward-falling momentum. It literally sounds like a man stumbling down a hill, unable to stop himself, yet thrilled by the descent. It proved that leaving a massive stadium act for artistic integrity could actually yield a commercial triumph, setting the blueprint for the modern solo career. Sometimes the song you write to burn a bridge is the exact one that builds your future. Number 9, Peg by Steely Dan. Some songs become hits. Others become an obsession. Donald Fagen and Walter Becker were notoriously ruthless perfectionists, especially during the grueling sessions for their 1977 album Aja. They wanted a flawless, breezy yacht rock staple. What they actually engineered was the psychological breakdown of 7 different elite guitarists. They needed a guitar solo, not just any solo, but a very specific, angular sound they heard in their heads. They brought in the best session players in Los Angeles, including heavyweights like Robben Ford and Larry Carlton. For months, they rejected every single take. The studio atmosphere was suffocating. Finally, a session player named Jay Graydon was brought into the room. He spent 6 exhausting hours playing the same solo over and over until he achieved the exact phrasing the duo demanded. He was drained, but the tape finally captured the magic. The obsessive perfection didn't stop with the guitars. The backing vocals feature Michael McDonald layering his voice up to 4 times. He created a dense, impossibly smooth, harmonic wall. In fact, it was so dense that standard tape machines of the era struggled to handle the frequencies without hissing. This remains the ultimate testament to 1970s studio excess. It is a world where agonizing, microscopic perfectionism somehow yielded the most deceptively effortless pop music ever recorded. Great art doesn't always come from inspiration. Sometimes it comes from sheer, unyielding exhaustion. Number 8, Psycho Killer by Talking Heads. There are coincidences in music, and then there is cultural collision. David Byrne originally wrote this art rock experiment years earlier as a ballad. He was just trying to imagine what Alice Cooper might sound like performing a Randy Newman track. It was quirky, intellectual, and largely harmless. But here's the strange part. Its release in late 1977 perfectly coincided with the most terrifying summer in New York City history. The Son of Sam serial killer was actively terrorizing the boroughs, leaving letters and evading a massive police manhunt. The public heard this new paranoid track on the radio, complete with its tense bilingual ramblings, and they made an immediate assumption. People falsely believed the song was directly inspired by the real-life murders. It became the unofficial, accidental soundtrack to a city on edge. Listeners would lock their car doors when it came on, wondering if the danger was right outside their window. Musically, the tension was anchored by a driving, unyielding bass line. Bassist Tina Weymouth didn't build it on traditional rock or funk rhythms. Instead, she was heavily influenced by the structured bounce of French pop. This created a rigid, cold foundation for Byrne's frantic vocal delivery. The track brought high art conceptualism straight into the gritty punk scene of the CBGB club. It proved that intellectual anxiety could be packaged as a commercial hook. A song meant to be an artistic exercise ended up holding a dark mirror to a society gripped by genuine terror. Number 7, Lust for Life by Iggy Pop. Sometimes, the most terrifying threats aren't out on the streets. Sometimes they are running right through your own bloodstream. In 1976, David Bowie and Iggy Pop fled the sunshine of Los Angeles for the cold isolation of West Berlin. They were desperately trying to kick severe cocaine and heroin habits. The gray, oppressive atmosphere of the divided city was meant to sober them up. They were men on the edge, seeking refuge from their own success. One afternoon, they sat in a sparse apartment waiting for the Armed Forces Network news broadcast to start. The station had a pulsing Morse code intro that played before the anchor spoke. Bowie picked up a ukulele. He began mimicking that rapid rhythm on the small strings. Pop immediately started writing lyrics inspired by the novelist William S. Burroughs. He was hiding incredibly dark references to his addiction right beneath a joyous, bouncy melody. To give the track its teeth, drummer Hunt Sales created a driving beat that borrowed directly from Motown. He specifically mimicked the galloping rhythm of the Supremes' You Can't Hurry Love, but he added heavy, aggressive rock cymbals to give it a vicious, street-level edge. Think about that for a second. The most energetic, life-affirming rock beat of the 1970s was written on a ukulele in front of a television by two men fighting for their lives. It brilliantly disguised deep trauma as an unstoppable party anthem. Some songs make you want to dance, but this one was about surviving long enough to do so. Number 6, Barracuda by Heartland. While some artists were fighting internal demons, others were under attack from the very people paying them. The music industry in the 1970s was a machine, and it was rarely kind to women. Heart was breaking through the noise, led by the fierce talents of sisters Ann and Nancy Wilson. They were young, incredibly gifted, and entirely unprepared for the sheer sleaze of the business. Their own label, Mushroom Records, decided to pull a publicity stunt that crossed every conceivable line. They placed a fake, full-page advertisement in an industry magazine implying that the sisters were involved in an incestuous relationship. It was a calculated move to sell records using tabloid shock value. After a show, a reporter actually approached Anne and asked her about her lover. She was completely repulsed. She realized in that instant that her label saw them as disposable objects, not musicians. She retreated straight to her hotel room, and that's where everything changes. She channeled that pure, unadulterated rage into lyrics directed straight at the corporate rock machine. Guitarist Roger Fisher backed up her venom with a blistering riff. He drew heavy inspiration from Nazareth's cover of This Flight Tonight, using aggressive palm muting to create a mechanical, almost violent chug. It was the sound of boundaries being drawn in steel. It stands as one of the first and most powerful musical indictments of industry misogyny. Turning victimization into a stadium anthem takes a special kind of strength. Number 5, God Save the Queen by Sex Pistols. Across the ocean, The targets of rebellion were a bit more aristocratic. England was in the midst of celebrating Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee in the summer of 1977. The entire nation was draped in forced patriotism, and in response, the highest-selling song in the country was legally censored from existing. The track referred to the monarchy as a fascist regime. The British establishment did not find this amusing. The BBC banned it entirely from their airwaves. Independent radio stations refused to play it. Record-pressing plant workers even refused to package the vinyl. But here's what most people don't realize. The censorship completely backfired. Kids were buying it in droves specifically because they were told not to during Jubilee week. The record sold enough physical copies to easily take the #1 spot on the charts. But the chart compilers controversially placed it at #2. In some printed charts, they literally left a blank space rather than printing the title. Behind the anti-establishment noise, there was real musical architecture at play. The band actually recorded the track multiple times with producer Chris Thomas. He layered dozens of guitar tracks to create a thick, impenetrable wall of sound. This massive, expensive production completely contradicted their amateur, street urchin image. They were playing a part, and playing it perfectly. It proved that state censorship only fuels the counterculture. Sometimes a blank space speaks much louder than words. #4, Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. Speaking of playing a part, there was a multi-platinum album in 1977 that was universally rejected by almost every record executive in the business. Writer Jim Steinman and singer Meatloaf spent over 2 years auditioning their project for labels. They were trying to merge Broadway show tunes with heavy metal, a concept that simply did not compute in a boardroom. They even stood in front of music mogul Clive Davis. He told them flat out that they knew absolutely nothing about rock music. The industry viewed it as an unmarketable, theatrical joke. It was only recorded because of utopian pop rocker Todd Rundgren. Rundgren found the sheer scale of the project so hilarious and absurd that he financed the sessions himself. He honestly thought he was producing a Bruce Springsteen parody. The title track itself is a sprawling, dramatic fever dream. At the exact midpoint of the song, there is the distinct roaring sound of a motorcycle engine being revved. But there was no motorcycle in the studio. That aggressive engine noise is actually Rundgren manipulating his electric guitar through a fuzz pedal and amplifier feedback. It was a brilliant studio trick masking as raw horsepower. The entire project demonstrated that defying every standard radio convention, from song length to genre to simple subtlety, could still result in one of the best-selling triumphs of all time. True originality often looks like a joke to the people who lack imagination. #3, Heroes by David Bowie.
What you say, I say.
While Meatloaf was fighting to get his theatrical vision taken seriously in New York, David Bowie was back in Europe, quietly watching a very real, very private drama unfold from a studio window. Bowie was working in Hansa Studios in West Berlin, a building that sat literally in the shadow of the heavily guarded Berlin Wall. Looking out the window one afternoon, he saw a couple embracing near the concrete barrier. For decades, he told the press they were just random strangers. He claimed it was a fleeting moment of anonymous romance that inspired a song about two lovers finding a moment of peace in a divided city. But that wasn't true. The man he saw was his married producer, Tony Visconti, and he was wrapped in the arms of backup singer Antonia Mass. They were having a secret affair. Bowie kept their indiscretion quiet for years to protect Visconti's marriage. He took this illicit private moment of guilt and disguised it as a universal symbol of defiance against the Cold War machine. To capture the soaring emotion of the track, Visconti used a brilliant piece of studio engineering. He placed 3 microphones at varying distances down a massive, echoing hallway. As Bowie sang, louder and more desperately, gates would automatically open the microphones positioned further away. This created a rich, natural reverberation that simply couldn't be faked by standard studio equipment. The track transformed a moment of personal betrayal into rock's highest anthem of triumph over division. Sometimes the most beautiful declarations of love are the ones we aren't supposed to see. Number 2, Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac. If Bowie was hiding his friends' secrets, Fleetwood Mac was actively broadcasting theirs to millions of people. It is one thing to write a breakup song. It is an entirely different level of cruelty to force your ex to sing the backing vocals. Lindsey Buckingham wrote this catchy, upbeat pop single about his disintegrating relationship with bandmate Stevie Nicks. He pulled no punches. In the verses, he explicitly accused her of packing her bags and moving in with other men. Nicks was absolutely furious when she heard the vocal playback. She begged him to remove the accusation, insisting it wasn't true and was deeply unfair to her character. Buckingham coldly refused to change a single syllable. Because they were bound by their contracts and the structure of the band, Nicks had no choice. She was professionally obligated to stand in a vocal booth and sing beautiful, soaring harmonies on a track meticulously designed to humiliate her. Underneath that vocal tension, the rhythm section was doing something entirely unorthodox. Mick Fleetwood didn't play a standard rock beat. Instead, he attempted to replicate a street beat he once heard from a passing marching band. He played this halting, unusual pattern completely across Buckingham's driving acoustic guitar. The resulting friction makes the song feel like it's pulling in 2 different directions at once. It represents the absolute peak of using mainstream pop music as a weapon for deeply interpersonal warfare. The deepest cuts don't come from strangers. They come from the people sharing your microphone. Number 1, Hotel California by Eagles. You can find it here. We finally arrive at the end of the road. And fittingly, it is a song about a place you can never truly. For nearly half a century, urban legends have swirled around this brooding, acoustic-driven track. People whispered that the lyrics were hiding satanic messages. They claimed it was secretly about a psychiatric hospital or a sinister cult operating in the desert. The truth is much sharper. Don Henley and Glenn Frey wrote it as a targeted, cynical critique of Los Angeles decadence. It was an attack on their own peers. The famous line detailing an attempt to stab a beast with steel knives wasn't about the occult at all. It was a direct, playful jab at their chart rivals, Steely Dan. The band had referenced the Eagles in a track a year prior, and this was Henley's retaliation. It was an inside joke, cleverly hiding inside an apocalyptic desert noir narrative. Capturing that dark atmosphere required a monumental effort. The climactic dual guitar solo took Don Felder and Joe Walsh 3 full days of grueling studio work to record. At one point, they couldn't even remember the exact harmony parts they had improvised months earlier. They actually had to call Felder's housekeeper in Malibu, ask her to dig through his cassettes, and hold a telephone up to the stereo speaker so they could relearn their own music over a scratchy long-distance line. When it was finally finished, they had created the definitive eulogy for the American dream. The song captures the exact horrifying moment when the innocent flower power idealism of the 1960s rotted into the cynical, cocaine-fueled excess of the late 70s. It remains the gold standard of storytelling in rock. It proves that the prettiest places on earth always cast the darkest shadows. Music from the 1970s often feels like a closed book to us now. It sits there, pristine and untouchable in its classic rock glory. But as these 10 tracks prove, the greatest songs are rarely born from peace and harmony. They are forged in the fires of betrayal, severe addiction, state censorship, and petty spite. We keep listening to them decade after decade, not just because the melodies are timeless. We listen because the raw human flaws embedded deep in the vinyl still resonate with our own. Some songs merely become hits. Others become something else entirely. They become the ghosts that define an entire moment in time.